Well, welcome back. Good to see you. Today, let's look at chapter 36 of Genesis. It has to do with the descendants of Esau. And after this, we're going to know who they are, where they are, and they're going to be referenced in the Old Testament occasionally, but Esau essentially falls off the page of sacred writ. He is no longer in the lineage of the Messiah and no longer a part of what we would call the people of God. But God had promised Abraham that he would be the father of nations. So we have Jacob starting a nation, the kingdom of Israel. And here we're going to see the kingdom of Edom, or the kingdom of Esau. So I want to get it before us, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter because there are three lists, genealogical lists here, but let me just get some of the first part and some of the portions in front of us of the chapter here, and then we'll go back and peel out some of the insights and revelations. Chapter 36 of Genesis. This is the account of Esau. Now, parentheses, that is Edom. So the author wants to show us clearly and mentions this several times that Esau and Edom become synonymous. Verse 2, Esau took his wives from the women of Canaan. Now Isaac had told him not to do that, but he did it to despite his father. So this note is significant because it reminds us of what Esau did. So here they are, Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. Now, Anah is, or maybe it's Anah, was one who found water in the desert place, later we learn. And it's just significant that the names show up here. And then we have this, and granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Now, remember, Rebekah was frustrated by the Hivite women. There was something about them, something they did, something about their values and lifestyle that was repugnant to her, and she did not want Jacob to marry a woman from the Hivites, and thus had Isaac send Jacob off to her relatives to find a wife. I continue, verse 3. Also, Besemath, daughter of Ishmael. Oh, isn't that interesting? Daughter of Ishmael, the other rejected son of Abraham, and sister of Nebaioth. Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau, Besemath bore Reuel, and Oholibamah bore Yeush, Yalam, and Korah. We're going to come across Korah later in the Bible several times. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in Canaan. Verse 6, Esau took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and all his other animals, and all the goods he had acquired in Canaan, and moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. Now here's the why. Their possessions were too great for them to remain together. The land where they were staying could not support them both because of their livestock. God had promised to bless the descendants of Abraham, and here is the evidence that the blessing was so great that they had to part company. They had to go live in separate places. So the land they were staying in could not support them both because of their livestock. So Esau, that is, Edom, now this is the second time we have this reference to a synonymous meaning, settled in the hill country of Seir. In Edom there is a mountain range called the Mountain of Seir. And this is the account of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in the hill country of Seir. And then we have a genealogical list. Drop down to verse 20. These were the sons of Seir the Horite, who were living in the region. So now we have a reference to a people that was already there. And incidentally, later we're given the fact that there were some giants living there. One of the giants was Gog. And he had a bed that was 10 feet long and 3 feet wide. No, 5 feet wide. And that iron bed has been discovered archaeologically today. But there are stories about Gog and how big he was. He was a giant, and there were giants in that area. Incidentally, in Revelation, we read about Gog and Magog, and so is there a connection here? Well, I don't know. Just a reference there. And then in verse 31, these are the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite king reigned. Now that's an interesting statement. We're gonna just pick that out. Now down to verse 40. These were the chiefs descended from Esau by name according to their clans. And then the chapter concludes with this statement at the end of verse 43. This was Esau, the father of the Edomites. Well, let's just think about that. In the map that I have here on the screen before us, you have in kind of a pink there the kingdom of Edom. And it is in the hill country. It is east of Israel, east of the Sinai Peninsula. And there is a town there called Timnan. There is another in the Philistine country on the coast of the Mediterranean that is actually called Timnah. So I just referenced that. We'll come across it in a bit here, but let's take a look at this area then, Edom, where Esau went, and it's going to be a significant thing for us. Incidentally, it is the area where Petra is. If any of you are familiar with the Left Behind series, they reference Petra as a place where in the end time people will go. I don't agree with the focus of the series or this particular thing, but it is referenced, and I have been there not too long ago, so I have actually seen these carvings, and this is called the treasury, the one on the picture here. Edom is hill country, and so this is a view from up, looking from the Jordan River eastward, and you can notice that it begins to get hilly, and it is a wilderness. It really is. Here's another map, lays out Edom, and specifically I want to point out that there is a mountain range here, not a peak, but a mountain range that is called Mount Seir. And that is referenced not only here, but elsewhere in Scripture. And so it's just kind of fun to know what we're talking about when we hear these things. Let's go back to the separation narrative, verses 6 through 8 of this chapter of Genesis. It says that Esau took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and all his other animals. That would have been donkeys and oxen and camels and so on, goats, and all the goods he had acquired in Canaan. You know, all the televisions and cars and microwave. Oh, wait a minute. Well, whatever they were. And he moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. And then we're given the reason that they just simply had too much. So Esau, that is Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. So the reason that Moses gives us for the separation, of course, is the abundant blessing that God had given. However, there is a similarity here between the separation between Lot and Abraham. And in that narrative, we are told that Lot went east. And remember, I've said that figuratively, the Bible always uses an eastward migration as away from God. So Lot moved away from God while Abraham moved toward God. In this narrative, Esau moves east, and he now is shown The revelation is that he is moving away from God. He becomes a godless person, and therefore his kingdom, his descendants are going to tend to be godless as well. Herod the Great comes from one of his descendants in the New Testament, and so we have that. But Moses is trying to tell us that God had been faithful to his promise, and he had blessed the grandsons of Abraham abundantly. Here's another picture, a topographical view of Edom. And I want you to notice the rugged hills. And when it's called the hill country of Edom, this is why. It is awesome. And so that range of mountains there is called Mount Seir. At the top of the picture, you have Mount Hermon, and then you can see the Jericho Rift, the Jordan Rift. And so the Sea of Galilee is the first blue spot that you see, and then the Dead Sea, the second one, and the Jordan River is what feeds both of them. And Israel is on our left. Both the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah are pictured in this case. And then on the right, you have at the top Ammon up there in Syria and Moab, and then down at the bottom, Edom. Now the name Esau is identified as Edom. Red. Well, where's the red? Well, there is a reference to when Esau was born, he was reddish. Now, I don't know whether it was red hair or red skin or what it was, but also we have, he traded his birthright for a bowl of red stew. So the Edom, the red always takes us back to these little points that are given to us, and it ties them together. It's kind of a connect the dot. So Edom. And Edom is going to be referenced from here on in the Old Testament as a nation that sometimes opposes Israel. And then even in the time of Christ, there is a Decapolis, that is, the 10 cities that are over in that area. Now the reason is that Edom plays this role then in history. It is not going to be in the redemptive stream, but it is in the biblical history. So the prophet Obadiah identifies Edom as equivalent to all other nations, or the Gentiles at large. Well, these people are descendants of Abraham, so they're not the same as all the other Gentiles, but it's interesting how the reference is there. And in the reign of the Messianic king, references to that, Edom will again be part of Israel. So when I was over there the last time, there was an Orthodox Jew that was explaining how the Bible says that one day the two branches will become one, and he's talking about the two branches of Abraham. He's talking about Jacob and Esau, actually, and their descendants. And so it was going to be one, as it was in the days of King David. Well, David had conquered this area and had it subjugated for a little while. There is in verse 21 then of the prophetic chapter, it says that deliverers will go up to Mount Zion to govern the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be the Lord's. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So the possessions of Edom is a mark of strength and a victorious reign of. And then in Numbers we hear of the star that is to arise out of Jacob. Now we use that in the Christmas setting when we talk about the Magi coming from the east and seeing the star. But it seems that the star is the Son of Righteousness. It's the Messiah, and so there's a reference there. And I don't know how to tie it all together, but I just want to highlight the fact that there is some revelation here about it. New Testament writers conclude that the promise relates to the remnant of Edom, and they seem to imply that it's all mankind, or all the Gentiles. In the Hebrew, they're called Goyim, and God wanted the Jews to bless the Goyim. James, in his reference to Amos 9:12, talks about the remnant of Edom as a reference to all mankind again. So maybe what we're talking about, everybody has become godless. All the nations have become godless. But Israel is to be a blessing to them in that they are to call them back to a worship and love of the true God, the God who blesses. And they are thus to be a blessing to the nations. Now, they failed to do that. And I think that the church has, in a sense, failed to do that in some ways. So again, back looking at the hill country of Seir, of Edom, Esau and his family then, we are told, moved to the region of Seir. In the foreground, that's a broom tree, the kind Elijah laid under, and there are lots of these out in the wilderness. Seir in Hebrew can mean a variety of things. It can mean standing on end, or bristling, shaggy, hairy, rough, shrinking, shaky, and so on. There's a whole bunch of things, and they're all kind of rough and dry and harsh and all that stuff. Matter of fact, a goat is called a seer, as is a wood demon. But the reference to the hill country of Seir is a kind of a negative reference. So Esau and his family moved to Seir, and there they are. And then we have the genealogy of Esau's descendants from his 3 wives. You see, he had taken wives from the Hittite group. And there's some confusion about the names. The names of his 3 wives are different in the various passages here in Genesis. And it may be because they're using both a Hittite and a Hebrew name, or maybe they're using a nickname or something like that. But for whatever reason, Ada is one, and that would mean to adorn oneself. She's the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And it's interesting that she and her sons are listed first. She was not the first wife, but she may have been the first one to have children for him, and therefore she's listed first. Basemath, which means sweet smelling, or it could mean sweet smile, was Esau's first wife. Now she's the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and she is called Mahalath, and she is said to be the daughter of Ishmael. Now when Esau, the rejected son, marries a descendant of Esau, the rejected son, marries a daughter of Ishmael, the rejected son, the bitterness compounds. And today in the Arab and the Islamic world, we have an awful lot of hatred, anger, bitterness toward Israel. That's where this stems from. And here is the combination of 2 streams of genealogy emanating down from Abraham. And that's going to be reflected all the way through history down to this point. The 3rd wife is Oholibamah, which means tent of the high place. That's kind of an interesting name. She's also called Judith, or woman of Judea. And so Oholiab's name may have been given to her because she's the one that built places of idolatry to the goddess Bamot. And she is actually Esau's 2nd wife. She's the daughter of Anna. But she is an illegitimate child resulting from an adulterous union. Now that may explain why she's not listed in one of the lists of the wives. In verse 10 we have a list, and Oholibamah is not listed there. You see, there's a taint on her, and so there's kind of an embarrassment about including her in the family. Well, you know, that happens in cultures. And then from verses 9 to 19, we're given the tribal chiefs of the clans of the descendants of Edom. The 2nd list of the sons of Esau is grouped by their mothers, and it emphasizes which are the chiefs. Incidentally, Korah, the son of Eliphaz, is not listed in the 1st list, but is named in the 2nd. And the names of Kenaz and Gatam are in a different order. Now, I have to tell you, none of this is accidental. There is revelation in this. I don't have it unpacked yet, but I'm working on it. You can work on it. Maybe we'll find an answer. And also, I want you to notice that Amalek, the son of Eliphaz, was by a concubine named Timnah. Now, the Canaanite woman that Samson married, Delilah, was from Timnah. He was from Beth-Shemesh. On one of the trips I took to Israel, the guide took us and unloaded the bus there at Beth-Shemesh. He said, this is Beth-Shemesh. I had not heard of it, didn't know anything about it. He said it's one of the 5 guard cities. And so along the border between Israel and Philistia, there were 5 guard cities, and they were separated by a distance of the sound of a shofar. So if someone blew a shofar in Beth-Shemesh, the towns on both sides would be able to hear it and prepare for war and broadcast to the other cities and towns accordingly. And so Samson was from Beth-Shemesh. Timnah was down in the valley and kind of down around the corner of the toe of a little hill out on the coast of the Mediterranean. And the guide said that Samson met Delilah at a barn dance. And I stood there and looked, and sure enough, I could see how that was a possibility that would happen. Timnah was also the place to which the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant when they stole it in the initial conquest of the Promised Land. The Philistines conquered because of the disobedience in the Israelite camp and so on. But they had trouble with it. It created trouble for them. So finally they put it on a new ox cart and sent it with some cows that had calved. And the cows brought the ox cart from Timnah up this little valley to Beth-Shemesh. I have a picture in my mind of all that because I stood watching as the guide explained all of this to me. That's incidental to all this. But here it is. So the sons of Seir, the Horite, we're told, are, and here's a list in chapter 36, 20 to 30. Now, these are the people that were already in the land. And like I tell you, the Horites had giants among them, extremely large men. Apparently they were as much as 10 feet tall. So what's the purpose of including this list, the list of the Horites? Well, perhaps it's because Esau's tribe will intermarry with the Horites, and while they will defeat these great giant kings, and they seem to become extinct, the sons of Seir, the Horite, are called Edomites, we're told. The word Hor means cave, and so perhaps the inference is that these are cave dwellers. So, well, that brings us to Petra, and there is a community at Petra that live in caves to this day. We're given that there are some rulers or chiefs of Edom, and they're listed so that we know who they are. So these were the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite reigned. Now, how would Moses know that? So we struggle with this and say, well, Moses really was the author. Maybe some later priest did an addendum in copying the scroll and reference this for us. Don't know how that got in there or why, but it is kind of an interesting little, conundrum. Let me just call it that. So with these lists, the description of Esau then is dismissed. Now, we know that the Nabateans were the ones who settled in Petra. Nabateans are desert dwellers, and they are the descendants of Edom. And so they're sometimes called Edomites. Nabateans is one of the tribes, and they had amazing technology with water. They were able to collect water. If it rained once every 5 or every 7 years, they would collect it into huge underground cisterns. And then they had water for their camels. These camel trains of 100 camels that came through there would have feed and water, and they had these camel stops across the wilderness. When the children of Israel came up out of Egypt, they bought water and food at these camel stops. I have been there now. I understand. I have seen this, and I understand how necessary these stations, filling stations, if you please, would have been back then even. But they also, these desert dwellers, gave the sons of Amalek specifically attacked the stragglers in the Exodus column. And so in the Bible, the Amalekites become a picture of the sinful nature. And if we do not kill the old man, the sinful nature, we will be killed by it. And so that is that's an interesting thing. So these Nabateans were nomadic people descended from the eldest son of Ishmael, Nabaioth. And remember now that the clans are going to be intermarried. And there are a few Bedouins to this day who live in these caves in Petra, and they're the ones in charge that are responsible for maintaining it, even though it is a national park and it's a tourist stop today, but it's terrific. Okay, there's the insights from chapter 36, and with that we're going to leave Esau behind and go on with the messianic lineage, and before long we'll be into the other son of Jacob from his beloved wife, who is going to become a somebody. That's Joseph, is sold off into Egypt. And so we'll get into some insights about that. But thank you for joining me for this one, and may God bless you, and may the insights be helpful as you read Scripture and learn to see the revelation in it, in each pericope, as you please. Okay, God bless you. Thank you.